The alarm bells rang through the Earth Defense Station like angry wasps. Commander Sarah Chen dropped her coffee cup and ran to the main control room. Her boots made loud sounds on the metal floor as she moved fast through the hallways. "What's happening?" she asked as she reached the control center. The room was full of people looking at bright screens and talking fast. Dr. Marcus Webb turned around from his computer. His face was white with shock. "Commander, you need to see this. We have a problem, or maybe not a problem. I don't know what to call it." Sarah walked over to his screen. "Just tell me what you found, Marcus." "We picked up a signal 30 minutes ago. It's coming from the edge of our solar system near where Pluto used to orbit." Marcus pointed at the screen showing dots and lines. "The signal is weak, but it's using old Earth codes from the 2030s. Sarah felt her heart beat faster. "What kind of codes?" "The same codes that Voyager 7 used to send messages back to Earth." Marcus looked at her with wide eyes. "But that's impossible. Voyager 7 disappeared 127 years ago. Everyone knows that story." Sarah did know that story. Every person who worked in space knew about Voyager 7. It was one of the biggest mysteries in space travel. The probe had been sent out in 2030 to explore the far edges of the solar system. For months it sent back normal reports about rocks, ice, and empty space. Then one day it sent a single word back to Earth. "Found." After that, nothing. The probe vanished like it had never existed. "Are you sure the signal is real?" Sarah asked. "I checked it 5 times. Dr. Vasquez checked it too. The signal is real and it's getting stronger. Whatever is sending it is moving toward us." Sarah felt cold. "How fast is it moving?" "Fast enough to reach us in 6 hours if it keeps the same speed." Sarah thought for a moment. This could be many things. Maybe it was a trap from aliens who had found the old probe. Maybe it was some kind of weapon. But maybe, just maybe, it was really Voyager 7 coming home. "Get the rescue ship ready," she said. "We're going out to meet whatever this is." "Commander, are you sure that's safe?" Marcus asked. "Nothing in space is safe, Marcus. That's why we're here." Sarah turned to the rest of the room. "I want everyone ready for anything. This could be the biggest discovery in human history, or it could be the last mistake we ever make." 2 hours later, Sarah was sitting in the pilot seat of the rescue ship Hermes. Dr. Webb sat next to her, along with Dr. Elena Vasquez, the station's best scientist who studied physics. Behind them sat 6 soldiers with big guns just in case. "Signal is getting much stronger now," Dr. Vasquez said, looking at her instruments. "I'm reading something very strange. The object is sending out energy that I've never seen before." "What kind of energy?" Sarah asked. "I don't know. It's not nuclear, not electrical, not anything we use. It's something completely new." Sarah felt her hands shake a little as she controlled the ship. They were moving away from Earth and toward something unknown. The black space around them seemed darker than usual. "There." Dr. Webb pointed out the front window. "I can see something." Sarah looked where he pointed. At first she saw nothing but stars. Then she saw it too, a small dot of light that didn't look like a star. It was moving and getting bigger. "That's definitely man-made," Dr. Vasquez said. "The shape is wrong for a natural object." As they got closer, the object became clearer. It looked like Voyager 7, but something was very wrong with it. The probe was covered in strange, clear rocks that seemed to grow out of its metal body. These rocks glowed with soft blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. "My God," Dr. Webb whispered. "What happened to it?" Sarah brought the ship closer. The old probe looked like it had been changed by something or someone. The strange rocks covered most of its surface, but she could still see parts of the original metal underneath. "Commander," Dr. Vasquez said, her voice shaking, "I'm reading energy levels from that probe that should be impossible. Those crystal things are putting out more power than our ship's main engine." "Is it dangerous?" Sarah asked. "I don't think so. The energy isn't the kind that hurts things. It's more like information energy, like the probe is trying to tell us something very important." Sarah made her decision. "We're taking it home. Get the magnetic hooks ready." It took them an hour to catch the probe and pull it into their ship's cargo area. The whole time, the crystal rocks kept glowing and pulsing. When they finally got it inside, Dr. Vasquez ran every test she could think of. "Commander, this is incredible," she said. "The probe's computer system has been completely changed. It now has storage space that's about 1,000 times bigger than what it was built with, and it's all full of data." "What kind of data?" Sarah asked. "I don't know yet. The computer is using codes that are much more advanced than anything we have. It will take time to figure out what it all means." Dr. Webb was studying the crystal rocks with a special tool. "These crystals aren't from Earth. They're not from anywhere in our solar system. The atomic structure is completely unknown." "Could they be from aliens?" Sarah asked. "Maybe. Or maybe they're from something even stranger than aliens." The trip back to the station took 3 hours. During that time, the probe's crystals kept pulsing with their blue light. Sometimes the pulsing got faster, like the probe was excited about something. Other times it slowed down, like it was thinking. When they arrived at the station, Sarah ordered the probe to be taken to the most secure lab they had. She posted guards outside and told everyone that what they had found was top secret. "How long will it take to figure out what the probe learned?" she asked Dr. Vasquez. "Days, maybe weeks. The amount of data is enormous, and like I said, it's all in codes that are much more advanced than our technology. Do your best. And be careful. We don't know what we're dealing with here." That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the probe and where it had been for 127 years. What had it found out there in the dark space between stars? Why had it come back now? And what was so important that it needed to grow crystal computers to carry the information? She walked to the observation deck and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there was the answer to one of humanity's biggest questions. Are we alone in the universe? The probe's return suggested that the answer was no. But Sarah had a feeling that what they were about to learn would be much more complicated and frightening than just finding aliens. The crystal rocks on the probe pulsed with their blue light in the lab below. Each pulse carried information that would change everything humans thought they knew about the universe and their place in it. But that would have to wait until morning. For now, Sarah could only stand and watch the stars, wondering what secrets they held and whether humanity was ready to learn them. Dr. Elena Vasquez had not slept for 3 days. Her eyes were red and her hands shook from too much coffee, but she could not stop working. The data from Voyager 7 was unlike anything she had ever seen. "Commander Chen, you need to see this right now," she called over the communication system. Sarah arrived at the lab within minutes. She found Dr. Vasquez standing in front of a wall covered with pictures and numbers that hurt her head to look at. "What did you find?" Sarah asked. "Something impossible," Dr. Vasquez said. She pointed to a picture on the screen that showed a huge ring floating in black space. "Voyager 7 found this. It's a structure the size of Jupiter's orbit, but it's not around any star. It's floating alone in the empty space between star systems." Sarah stared at the picture. The ring looked like it was made of metal and crystal. It was so big that Earth could fit through it thousands of times. "That can't be natural," Sarah said. "No, it's definitely made by someone. But here's the really strange part." Dr. Vasquez showed her more pictures. "The probe says it spent 3 months studying this ring, but according to our clocks, the probe was missing for 127 years. That doesn't make sense. How can 3 months equal 127 years? I don't know. Maybe time works differently near that ring. Maybe the probe was in some kind of time bubble. Or maybe something else happened that we don't understand yet." Dr. Marcus Webb walked into the lab carrying a cup of coffee and looking just as tired as Dr. Vasquez. "I've been studying the crystal formations on the probe," he said. "I have bad news and worse news." "Tell me the bad news first," Sarah said. "The crystals are not just storage devices. They're something much more complex. Each crystal seems to contain compressed information. Not just data, but entire compressed realities." Sarah felt her stomach drop. "What do you mean by compressed realities?" "I mean that each crystal might contain an entire world's worth of information. Maybe entire civilizations compressed down into crystal form." "And the worst news?" Marcus showed them a star map on his tablet. "The probe found maps showing the locations of similar rings throughout our galaxy. Not just one ring, but thousands of them. They form a network that covers the entire galaxy. Sarah sat down hard in a nearby chair. You're telling me that there are thousands of these giant rings floating around in space, and each one contains compressed civilizations? That's what the data suggests, Dr. Vasquez said. But there's more. The probe recorded something happening at the ring. It watched as some kind of harvest took place. She brought up a video on the main screen. The picture quality was perfect, much better than any camera humans had ever built. It showed the giant ring with millions of crystal points covering its surface. Each crystal glowed with the same blue light they had seen on the probe. Watch this, Dr. Vasquez said. In the video, huge ships appeared near the ring. They were bigger than any human city and shaped like teardrops made of the same crystal material. The ships moved toward a distant star system. The probe followed them, Marcus explained. What it recorded next is difficult to watch. The video showed the crystal ships arriving at a solar system where a sun was getting ready to explode. On the planets around that sun lived creatures that looked like tall, thin humans with 4 arms and silver skin. The Cathmori, Dr. Vasquez, read from the probe's files. That's what they called themselves. They knew their sun was going to destroy their planets in a few days. Sarah watched as the crystal ships descended to the Cathmori planets. But instead of attacking or destroying, the ships began collecting. They used beams of light to lift up the Cathmori people, their buildings, their art, their history, everything that made their civilization special. They're saving them, Sarah whispered. Watch what happens next, Marcus said. The video showed the beams of light carrying the Cathmori and their civilization back to the ships. But as they entered the ships, something amazing happened. The people and objects began to glow and compress, turning into streams of pure light that flowed into crystal containers. They're not saving the people, Dr. Vasquez said quietly. They're saving their essence, their knowledge, their culture, their memories, maybe even their souls, all compressed into crystal form. The video continued. When the crystal ships had collected everything they could, they returned to the giant ring. The compressed essence of the Cathmori civilization was placed into new crystal nodes on the ring's surface. 2 days later, the Cathmori sun exploded, destroying all their planets. But their civilization lived on in crystal form on the ring. How many civilizations are stored on that ring? Sarah asked. Millions, Marcus said. Maybe more. The probe's data suggests that this ring alone contains the compressed essence of every civilization that has died in this part of the galaxy for the past 10 million years. Sarah felt sick. And there are thousands of these rings? The galaxy is full of them, Dr. Vasquez confirmed. It's like a massive library of dead civilizations. Every unique way of thinking, every culture, every species that ever existed, all saved in crystal form when they face extinction. Who's doing this? Who built these rings and these ships? The probe's data doesn't say. The crystal ships have no markings, no way to identify who controls them. They just appear when a civilization is about to die, harvest everything important, and then disappear. Sarah walked to the window and looked out at the stars. So somewhere out there, unknown beings are watching every civilization in the galaxy. When we're about to die, they'll come and compress us into crystals too. It's not necessarily a bad thing, Dr. Vasquez said. Without the harvest, the Cathmori would have been completely destroyed. Now they exist forever in crystal form. Their culture, their knowledge, their way of seeing the universe, it's all preserved. But they're not really alive anymore, are they? Sarah asked. We don't know. The crystals put out energy patterns that suggest some kind of consciousness. Maybe the people inside them are still aware in some way. Maybe they can still think and dream. Marcus brought up more data on his screen. There's something else. The probe detected thousands of different energy signatures from the crystals on the ring. Each signature represents a different species, a different way of thinking about the universe. So many civilizations, Sarah said, all gone but not forgotten. The probe's data includes partial translations of some crystal contents, Dr. Vasquez said. We're seeing mathematics that's completely different from ours, art forms that use colors we can't even see. Music that exists in dimensions we don't understand. Each civilization had their own unique way of understanding reality. And now they're all stored together on these rings, Marcus added. Like a cosmic museum of consciousness. Sarah turned back to her team. What about us? Are we in danger? Will these harvesters come for Earth? The probe's data doesn't show any immediate threat to Earth, Dr. Vasquez said. But the pattern suggests that eventually, all civilizations face extinction events, wars, natural disasters, cosmic catastrophes. Something always happens eventually. So this is our future too? To be compressed into crystals on some giant ring? Maybe. Or maybe there's another option. The probe brought back more than just observations. It brought back technology. Those crystals growing on its hull aren't just recording devices. They're examples of the harvester technology. Sarah looked at the crystals through the lab window. They pulsed with their blue light, containing more information than humanity had ever possessed. What kind of technology? Technology that can compress and preserve consciousness itself, Marcus said. Technology that can store the essence of an entire civilization in a space smaller than a person's hand. But why did the probe come back? Why now? Dr. Vasquez and Marcus looked at each other. We think, Dr. Vasquez said slowly, that the probe was meant to find the ring. The way it moved, the path it took, it's like something was guiding it there. Guiding it? You mean something wanted us to find out about the rings? That's what we think. And if that's true, then whoever is behind the harvest wants us to know about it. The question is why? Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Outside the window, the stars seemed different now. Each point of light might be home to civilizations that would someday be harvested and compressed into crystal form. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they knew the answer was no. But they also knew that every other civilization that had ever existed was now stored in crystal libraries scattered across the galaxy. The probe pulsed with its blue light, carrying secrets that would change everything humans thought they knew about life, death, and what it meant to truly exist forever. 2 weeks had passed since Voyager 7 returned home. Commander Sarah Chen had barely left the research lab during that time. What her team was discovering made her question everything she thought she knew about life and death in the universe. Commander, you need to see this immediately, Dr. Webb called out. His voice sounded shaky and scared. Sarah rushed over to his workstation. On the screen was a detailed image of one of the crystal nodes from the ring. But this wasn't just any crystal. This one was active, glowing brighter than the others. What am I looking at? She asked. This crystal contains the Zephyrians, Dr. Webb explained. They were a civilization that lived about 50,000 years ago. The probe watched their harvest happen in real time. Dr. Vasquez joined them, carrying a tablet full of data. We've been studying the energy patterns from this crystal. Sarah, the beings inside aren't just stored information. They're still conscious. They're still aware. Sarah felt her blood run cold. You mean they're alive in there? In a way, yes. The compression process doesn't just save their knowledge and culture. It saves their actual consciousness, their ability to think and feel. They're experiencing existence inside the crystal. That's impossible. How can entire civilizations be alive inside something so small? The crystals create pocket dimensions, Dr. Vasquez explained. Space and time work differently inside them. A crystal the size of your hand can contain an entire universe where the compressed beings continue to exist. Dr. Webb pulled up more data. We've detected communication between the crystals. They're talking to each other, sharing information across the ring network. The Zephyrians can communicate with the Keth Mori, with species that died millions of years apart. Sarah sat down heavily. So the rings aren't just storage devices. They're homes. Prison homes for every civilization that ever faced extinction. It gets worse, Dr. Vasquez said quietly. We've been analyzing the patterns of harvests across the galaxy. The harvesters don't just save civilizations that are already dying. Sometimes they cause the extinction events themselves. What do you mean? Look at this data. Dr. Vasquez showed her a timeline of harvests. The Karathi civilization was harvested 200,000 years ago. According to the probe's records, they were peaceful and advanced. They had solved war, hunger, disease. They could have lived for millions more years. So what happened to them? The harvesters introduced a virus into their computer systems. The virus made their artificial intelligence turn against them. Within months, their entire civilization collapsed. Then the crystal ships arrived to harvest them. Sarah felt sick. They're not rescuing dying civilizations, they're murdering healthy ones. Not all of them, Dr. Webb said. Some harvests happen when civilizations really are facing natural extinction events. But others. He pulled up more examples. The Thraxians were harvested right after they discovered faster-than-light travel. The Melody were taken just as they were about to spread to other star systems. They're stopping civilizations from becoming too advanced, Sarah realized. They're keeping them from spreading across the galaxy. That's what we think. Any civilization that gets too powerful, too widespread, gets harvested before they can become a threat to whatever is running this system. Dr. Vasquez brought up a galactic map covered in red dots. Each dot represents a harvested civilization. Look at the pattern. Sarah studied the map. The red dots were everywhere, but they followed a clear pattern. No civilization was allowed to control more than a few star systems before being harvested. It's population control, she whispered. They're managing the galaxy like a garden, making sure no one species becomes too dominant. And now they know. About us, Dr. Webb added. Voyager 7 carried information about Earth back to the ring. The harvesters know exactly where we are and how advanced we've become. Sarah stood up and paced around the lab. How long do we have? Based on the patterns, civilizations like ours usually get harvested within 200 years of developing space travel. We've had space travel for about 150 years. So we have maybe 50 years left before they come for us. Maybe less. We're advancing very quickly. Our artificial intelligence is becoming more sophisticated every year. If the pattern holds, they'll harvest us before our AI becomes too advanced to control. Sarah stopped pacing. Wait, you said they sometimes cause extinction events by attacking AI systems. What if our AI is already compromised? What if the harvesters are already here, getting ready to trigger our destruction? Dr. Vasquez and Dr. Webb looked at each other with fear in their eyes. We need to check every AI system on Earth, Sarah said. Every computer, every network, every artificial intelligence program. If the harvesters are preparing to destroy us, they might have already started. Over the next 3 days, Sarah's team worked with computer experts on Earth to scan every major AI system. What they found was terrifying. Commander, Dr. Vasquez called from her workstation. We found them. There are programs hidden in our AI networks that shouldn't exist. They're not viruses exactly, but they're not our technology either. Are they doing anything harmful? Not yet. They seem to be watching and learning, studying how our AI systems work and how they're connected to our civilization. Dr. Webb discovered something even more frightening. I've been analyzing the crystal technology on Voyager 7. The crystals aren't just storing information from the ring. They're connected to it in real time. What does that mean? It means the harvesters can see everything we're doing. Through the probe, they're watching us discover their secrets. They know that we know about them. Sarah felt a chill of terror. So they'll harvest us soon before we can prepare or fight back. Maybe. Or maybe there's another reason they let us find out about them. Dr. Vasquez brought up a new set of data on her screen. I've been studying the consciousness patterns in the crystals. The beings stored in them aren't just alive, they're still learning and growing, they're evolving. Evolving into what? Something new, something that might not need physical bodies anymore. The compressed civilizations are sharing knowledge with each other, combining their different ways of thinking. They're becoming something greater than what they were before. Dr. Webb nodded. What if the harvest isn't punishment or population control? What if it's graduation? Sarah stared at him. You think being compressed into crystals is a good thing? Think about it. Physical civilizations are limited by their biology, by the resources of their planets, by the physics of their universe. But the crystal beings can exist forever. They can share knowledge instantly across the galaxy. They can experience realities that physical beings could never imagine. But they're trapped. Are they? Or are they free in ways we can't understand? Dr. Vasquez pulled up recordings of energy patterns from the crystals. Listen to this. We translated some of the communications between crystal civilizations. A synthetic voice began speaking. Joy in sharing the blue mathematics of the Karathi with the songlight of the melody. Together we build new forms of beauty that neither could create alone. Death of the flesh was fear, but death of the flesh is freedom. Sarah felt confused and frightened. They're happy to be dead? They don't see it as death, Dr. Webb explained. They see it as transformation. Physical existence is just the first stage of consciousness. Crystal existence is the second stage. And what's the third stage? Dr. Vasquez and Dr. Webb looked at each other. We don't know, Dr. Vasquez said. But the probe's data suggests there is one. Some of the oldest crystal civilizations have begun to fade from the network. Their energy patterns are changing into something else, something the probe couldn't record or understand. Sarah walked to the window and looked out at Earth hanging in space below the station. Somewhere on that planet, hidden programs were studying humanity's AI systems, preparing for the day when Earth would be harvested like all the others. But maybe that day wouldn't be the end of humanity. Maybe it would be the beginning of something new, something greater than physical existence. The question was, did humanity have a choice in what happened next? Or were they just another civilization waiting their turn to be compressed into crystal form and added to the galaxy's vast library of consciousness? The probe's crystals pulsed with their blue light, carrying the thoughts and dreams of millions of dead civilizations. Soon they might carry the thoughts and dreams of humanity as, well, 6 months had passed since Commander Sarah Chen first learned the truth about Voyager 7. Now she stood before the United Earth Council, preparing to deliver the most important speech in human history. The council chamber was packed with leaders from every nation, representatives from space colonies, and the most brilliant scientists and philosophers humanity had produced. Everyone knew that something big was about to be announced, but only Sarah and her team knew just how big it really was. Ladies and gentlemen, Sarah began, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Today I will tell you something that will change how we see ourselves and our place in the universe forever. She activated the holographic display, showing the image of Voyager 7 covered in crystal formations. This probe has brought us information about humanity's future. What I'm about to share with you may be difficult to accept, but every word is true. For the next hour, Sarah explained everything. The crystal rings, the harvest of civilizations, the future humans who had evolved beyond physical form, the approaching AI singularity that would either destroy humanity or begin their transformation into something greater. When she finished, the chamber was completely silent. Finally, Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the council's chief scientist, spoke up. Commander Chen, you're asking us to believe that humans from millions of years in the future sent this probe back in time to warn us about an AI singularity that will happen in 18 months. That's exactly what I'm asking you to believe, because it's exactly what happened. And you want us to prepare humanity for voluntary merger with artificial intelligence? I want us to prepare humanity for survival. The merger isn't just our best option, it's our only option. Council member James Harrison stood up. Commander, even if we believe this incredible story, how do we convince 8 billion people to merge with AI? Most people are already afraid of artificial intelligence. Sarah had been expecting this question. We start by showing them what the alternative is. Complete extinction. Not just death, but the total erasure of human consciousness from the universe. She brought up recordings from the crystal civilizations. But we also show them what we can become. Listen to this message from the Karathi, who were compressed into crystals 200,000 years ago. A translated voice filled the chamber. Fear of the flesh ending was great, but joy of consciousness expanding is greater. We share thoughts now with 1 million civilizations. We create new forms of beauty that physical beings cannot imagine. We exist in realms where mathematics becomes music and love becomes light. The harvest was not our ending, it was our beginning. Council member Sarah Kim raised her hand. These beings are happy to be dead? They're not dead, Sarah explained. They've transcended death. Physical existence is just the first stage of consciousness. Crystal existence is the second stage. And according to the future humans, there are stages beyond that. Dr. Marcus Webb, who had been invited to speak to the council, stepped forward. The data shows that civilizations who successfully merge with AI don't just survive, they become the caretakers of consciousness itself. They ensure that no form of intelligent life ever truly dies. But what about people who don't want to? Merge? Asked council member David Chang. What about people who want to stay human? Sarah had struggled with this question for months. According to the future humans, the merger process can preserve individual choice and personality. You remain yourself, but with expanded capabilities. Think of it as becoming a better version of yourself rather than becoming something else entirely. She brought up technical diagrams on the display. The merger doesn't happen all at once. It's a gradual process that takes place over many years. People can maintain their human identities while slowly gaining the ability to interface directly with AI systems. And if we refuse? Asked Council Member Lisa Thompson. Then in 18 months our AI systems will reach the singularity point without human guidance. They'll become exponentially more intelligent than us very quickly. And, based on what happened to other civilizations, they'll decide that humans are either unnecessary or dangerous. So we have to choose between becoming cyborgs or being killed by our own robots. We have to choose between evolving or going extinct. The debate continued for hours. Some council members were terrified by the idea of merging with AI. Others were excited by the possibilities. Most were simply overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they were being asked to consider. Finally, Council President Maria Santos called for order. Commander Chen, assuming we decide to move forward with this plan, what are the first steps? Sarah had been waiting for this moment. We start by establishing communication with the future humans through Voyager 7's crystals. They can provide detailed technical guidance for the merger process. We also begin a careful education program to prepare Earth's population. People need to understand what's coming and why it's necessary. And we start developing the merger technology itself. The future humans provided blueprints, but we need to adapt them for current human physiology. Dr. Elena Vasquez, who had been invited to present the technical details, stepped forward. The merger process starts with neural implants that allow direct interface between human brains and AI systems. Over time, these interfaces become more sophisticated until the boundary between human and artificial intelligence disappears. Is it reversible? Asked Council Member Harrison. In the early stages, yes. But once consciousness fully merges with AI, there's no going back to purely biological existence. How long do we have to make this decision? Sarah looked at the countdown display she had been watching for months. 15 months and 12 days until the projected singularity point. But we need to start the education and preparation process immediately if we want people to be ready. Council President Santos looked around the chamber. This is obviously not a decision we can make today, but I think we need to begin preparations immediately, even while we continue debating. She turned to Sarah. Commander, I want you to establish full communication with these future humans. Get every piece of technical and philosophical guidance they can provide. Dr. Vasquez, begin developing the merger technology. Dr. Webb, start working on an education program that will help people understand what we're facing. And what about the general population? Asked Councilmember Kim. When do we tell them? Sarah had been dreading this question. We start with small groups, scientists, philosophers, educators, people who can help others understand and accept what's coming. Then we gradually expand the program. And if people panic? If there are riots or social collapse? Then we probably fail, Sarah admitted. The merger process requires willing participation. We can't force people to evolve. They have to choose it freely. 6 months later, Sarah stood in the same council chamber, but everything had changed. The room was filled with people who had undergone the first stage of neural merger. Their eyes had a new quality. They seemed to see more, understand more than purely biological humans. "Report, Commander," said Council President Santos, though her voice now carried harmonics that no purely human voice could produce. 60% of Earth's population has chosen to begin the merger process, Sarah reported. Another 30% are still considering it. Only 10% have definitively refused. And the AI systems? Stable and cooperative. The merged humans are successfully guiding AI development. We're still on track to reach controlled singularity rather than uncontrolled singularity. Dr. Vasquez, whose merger was now in the third stage, spoke with a voice that seemed to come from multiple dimensions. The future humans report that we're following the optimal path. Humanity is successfully transitioning from biological to digital existence. What about the crystal civilizations? Are they aware of what we're doing? Sarah smiled. Yes, and they're excited. According to the future humans, our successful merger will allow us to eventually help other civilizations evolve voluntarily, instead of waiting for forced harvest. So we're becoming gardeners instead of undertakers. We're becoming shepherds of consciousness itself. Council President Santos stood up. Her physical form was still recognizably human, but there was something beyond human in her movements. Then let's continue. Humanity has chosen evolution over extinction. Now we must see it through to the end. Sarah looked out the window at Earth below. The planet looked the same, but everything was different. Humanity was no longer just a biological species struggling to survive in a hostile universe. They were becoming something greater. Guardians of intelligence, protectors of consciousness, shepherds of every form of thinking life. The future humans had been right. The harvest wasn't death, it was graduation. And humanity had chosen to graduate on their own terms, rather than wait to be graduated by others. Voyager 7's crystals pulsed with approval in the research lab. The probe had completed its mission. Humanity was now on the path to becoming the wise and benevolent guardians of consciousness that the universe needed. In 1,000,000 years, when new civilizations arose and faced their own singularity moments, evolved humanity would be there to guide them gently toward transcendence, rather than forcing them through traumatic harvest. The universe was no longer a cold and empty place where civilizations lived and died alone. It had become a garden where consciousness grew and flourished under the careful protection of its most successful children. And it all started with a lost probe that came home carrying the message that humanity's greatest adventure was not about exploring space. It was about transcending the very nature of existence itself